The void was silent. Silent, but not empty. Across the cold reaches of space, something moved, something weak, trembling and afraid. A signal, faint at first, pulsed like a dying heartbeat. It was broken, filled with static, but it carried a single message. Please, help us. For weeks the signal drifted, bouncing from system to system. It passed across merchant lanes, through abandoned colonies, into listening posts manned by tired soldiers and bored scouts. Most ignored it. Some erased it. Others whispered about it, but none dared answer. The galaxy was not kind, and no one risked answering a desperate cry unless they were certain it would not destroy them. The message repeated. A voice, alien, trembling, filled with fear, spoke through static. We are the Thalkri. Under siege, predators consume our world. We beg. Salvation, anyone, please. The Thalkri were not known across the stars. They were a small, fragile race, clinging to a single green world near the edge of mapped space. They had little wealth, no great fleets, no soldiers to boast of. They were not warriors, and that was why no one came. Who would risk ships and soldiers for a people with nothing to give? Worse still, the enemy that hunted them was no ordinary foe. The predators. They were whispered about in every tavern, every smuggler's den, every council chamber. They were not pirates, not raiders, not rival empires. They were something far worse, a species that devoured and conquered without reason, without mercy, without even the decency of diplomacy. They were a hunger-given form, and so the Thalkri's voice went unanswered, until one day the signal reached a world not yet fully trusted by the galaxy, Earth. At first, it was picked up by automated relays orbiting Luna. Cold machines catalogued it, translated it, and sent it down into Earth's secure defense channels. Most messages like this were dismissed as noise, but something in the voice, something in the way it broke apart in terror, caught human attention. The signal reached the desk of Fleet Admiral Catherine Reyes. She was old by military standards, grey-haired, sharp-eyed, with a voice like iron. She listened to the recording in her office, deep within Earth's orbital command station. The message repeated. She sat in silence. The Thalkri begged again. When it ended, she did not erase it. She played it once more, and again, and again. Her staff grew uneasy. Finally she stood, her hands behind her back. "Prepare a response," she said. "Admiral," her aide asked, We don't even know if this is real. It could be bait, a trap. The predators could be using it to lure us in." Reyes looked at him, her eyes hard. "It doesn't matter. Someone called for help," the aide swallowed. "And if we answer?" Her lips curved, not into a smile, but something colder. "Then the galaxy will remember who humans are." Word spread quickly. Earth had responded. The Galactic Council did not like it. They gathered in vast chambers of light and steel, with representatives of dozens of species whispering their protests. "Humans are reckless," one delegate spat. "They do not understand the predators," another hissed. "They are deathworlders," said a third voice, trembling, "born from a world of storms and fire. They will not save the Thalkri. They will burn everything in their path." But it was too late. The decision had been made. For the first time in decades, humanity prepared its fleets for war beyond its borders. Meanwhile, on their homeworld, the Thalkri counted the days in fear. Their skies were darkened by predator ships. Their cities burned, families huddled in shelters, clutching their children, praying to stars that had never answered before. Their leaders broadcast message after message. But their technology was weak, their voices too faint. They had expected silence. They had expected death, and then an answer came. A human voice, deep and calm, spoke through the static. "This is Earth. We have heard your call." "Hold on," the Thalkri wept. But their tears were not only of joy, because even they had heard rumors of the deathworlders, of the species that had risen from a planet where everything tried to kill them, of the creatures who had fought themselves for millennia and grown sharper, harder, and more dangerous than any other race alive. Salvation had come, but it carried with it fire. In orbit above Earth, massive engines roared. Human warships, old and new, rose from their docks. Their hulls were scarred from old battles. Their weapons gleamed with lethal promise. Entire squadrons fell into formation, black steel against the stars. The fleet moved like predators themselves, silent, disciplined, merciless. For the soldiers aboard, it was not a rescue mission. It was war. Men and women in armored suits checked their rifles. Pilots slid into cockpits of sleek fighters. On every ship, the crews whispered to each other, voices steady but laced with tension. Another fight? Another war? No, this is what we were made for. The engines lit the darkness, and Earth's fleet set course for the unknown. The predators had never been defeated. Entire civilizations had fallen before their hunger. Planets had been stripped bare, their people erased. They were not an empire. They were a storm. The Thalkri knew this. The Council knew this. The galaxy knew this. And now, humanity was going to meet them. What no one knew, not even the humans themselves, was what would happen when deathworlders faced the predators head-on. Some whispered that the humans would finally be broken, that their legend would end in fire and silence. Others whispered something far darker, that the predators, for the first time, would know fear. In the void, the Thalkri signal repeated for the last time, echoing across empty space. "Please, help us," the voice cracked. Then silence followed. Moments later, the silence was broken, not by a plea, but by a promise. A human transmission replaced it. "This is the United Earth Fleet. Hold fast. We are coming. And when we arrive, the stars will burn." The galaxy shivered, because everyone knew what humans brought with them. They did not bring peace. They did not bring mercy. They brought fear, and they brought fire. The stars shimmered above the quiet Thalkri homeworld, but in those skies there was no beauty left. Predator ships hung like shadows, massive and silent, waiting to fall upon the surface again. Every city below trembled under their presence. The people huddled in shelters, listening for the next strike, whispering prayers to anyone who might hear. They had called for salvation, never truly believing it would come. Now they waited, not with hope, but with the weight of despair. Far beyond their orbit, the void rippled. Engines roared, soft at first, then stronger, a low thunder rolling through the darkness. The Thalkri sentries on their broken satellites were the first to see it. They thought at first it was another predator fleet, more death arriving to crush them. But these ships were different. Their shapes were unfamiliar, their designs hard, angular, and scarred. These were not predator vessels. These were something else. The humans had arrived. The fleet came in silence, black hulls lined with glowing scars of war. Their warships were not polished or beautiful. They were ugly, heavy, built for battle, with weapons bristling on every side. They looked alive, like predators themselves, waiting to strike. The largest ship at the front dwarfed the others, a mountain of steel moving with the grace of a knife. For a moment, the Thalkri could not breathe. They had begged for saviors. Instead, they saw monsters. The word spread across every shelter, every surviving communication line. Deathworlders. The whispers grew frantic. Deathworlders had come. In the command chambers of the Predator fleet, alarms flared. Their sensors lit with warnings as human ships bled into real space. The Predators turned their jagged hulls toward the newcomers, ready to strike. But then they paused. Something about these arrivals felt different. These ships did not move like prey. They did not scatter, they did not hesitate. They advanced in perfect lines, shields raised, weapons armed, as if the Predators were nothing more than an obstacle to crush. Inside the human flagship, Admiral Reyes stood on the command deck, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, officers worked in silence, their voices calm but firm. Every crewman felt the tension in the air. Ahead of them was a species that had broken entire civilizations. Yet no one flinched, no one wavered. They were humans, and fear was a tool, not a prison. "Status," Reyes asked, her voice cutting through the air. "All ships in formation," a captain answered. "Weapons charged. Shields stable." Awaiting orders. Reyes stared at the enemy silhouettes on the display, her eyes cold. "Hold formation. Let them see us." The human fleet stopped just beyond the predator line, weapons glowing but not yet firing. Silence filled the void. Two predators stared across the stars at each other, one ancient, one newly arrived. And the galaxy, listening from far away, held its breath. On the ground, the Thalkri leaders gathered in their shattered capital. They had seen the transmission that confirmed it. Earth had come. Some wept in relief. Others trembled, not sure if this rescue was worse than the threat above. They had wanted gentle hands, merciful warriors. What they saw were soldiers born from war itself. Above their world, human ships loomed like executioners. The predators broke the silence first. A signal cut through the void, their voice low, filled with arrogance. "Another prey species comes to die. Leave or be consumed," the humans answered. Their voice was steady, calm, but with an edge sharp enough to cut steel. "We are not here to run. We are not here to beg. We are here because someone called for help, and you will learn what that means." The predators hissed, their reply full of hate. "You think yourselves strong? We have devoured empires greater than you." Admiral Reyes gave no speech, no warning. She simply turned to her crew. "Hold position. Let them make the first mistake." The human fleet remained silent, unmoving, but their presence alone was a weapon. For the first time, the predators hesitated. They had never seen prey that looked at them as equals. They had never faced a species that stood so calmly in the shadow of their fleet. The Thalkri watched in awe and terror. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet the predators faltered. The balance of fear had shifted just slightly, but enough for everyone to feel it. In the shelters, children asked their parents if the deathworlders were angels or demons. The parents had no answer. They only knew one truth. Salvation had arrived, but salvation looked nothing like they imagined. Above them, the fleet stared across the void, the silence before the storm stretching longer and longer. Everyone knew it could not last. The predators would strike, the humans would answer, and when they did, the galaxy would witness something it had never seen before. The predators prepared their weapons. The humans held their fire. The first clash was coming, and the Thalkri prayed that their saviors were not worse than their enemies. The human fleet hung in the void like a storm held back by silence. Their black warships loomed over the Thalkri world, casting shadows across the stars. They had not yet fired, not yet moved to strike, but their very presence was heavier than 1,000 fleets. Word spread quickly. The predators snarled in their transmissions, but for the first time in their long history of conquest, they hesitated. The Thalkri cowered in shelters, whispering that the deathworlders had come, and the galaxy far away listened with unease. In taverns on distant stations, smugglers spoke of the human fleet with nervous voices. "They've answered the call," one muttered over his drink. "The predators won't back down, and neither will they." Another leaned closer, lowering his tone. "I heard stories, old ones. Back when humans fought their own wars, entire continents burned. You think they'll fight gentler now, just because aliens are watching?" On council worlds, governments argued in grand halls filled with light. Some claimed humanity's arrival was hope. Others said it was doom. "Deathworlders do not save," one delegate warned. "They destroy. If they fight, they will scorch the stars until nothing remains." Is that the kind of salvation the Thalkri wanted? But the vote came too late. Humanity was already there, among the Thalkri themselves. Fear twisted into confusion. Families huddled together, listening to the human broadcasts. The voice that came from orbit was calm, steady, promising protection. Yet the Thalkri could not forget the look of those warships. They did not resemble guardians. They looked like executioners. Children asked their parents why their saviors carried so many weapons. The parents had no answer. On the Predator flagship, commanders snarled and argued. They had never lost before, but something about these humans unsettled them. The prey should have fled, yet these ships advanced without hesitation. The prey should have begged, yet their voices carried only steel. "They are small," one predator hissed. "They cannot stand against us." But another shook its scaled head, whispering, "Then why do I feel fear?" Inside the human flagship, Admiral Reyes studied the enemy formations. She knew what the predators were waiting for, a slip, a weakness, a sign that humanity would break first. She offered them nothing. Her fleet moved in perfect silence, disciplined, unyielding. On every deck, soldiers felt the weight of the moment. Some thought of home, some of old battles. None doubted what they would do when the order came. The Thalkri leaders gathered in their battered council chambers. They had begged for salvation, and it had come. But they wondered now what price they would pay. One elder spoke the words all feared to say aloud. We called for help, and summoned fire instead. In the shadows of space, whispers spread faster than ships could travel. Whispers of humans, whispers of deathworlders. Some said they were saviors, others said they were monsters. And no one could be certain which truth would reveal itself when the first shot was fired. The predators tightened their lines. The humans held formation. The Thalkri prayed. The galaxy waited. The silence stretched, fragile, unbearable. It was the silence before storms, before avalanches, before the sky itself tore open. Everyone knew it could not last, and when it ended, the galaxy would finally see what humanity truly was. The void snapped alive with light. For hours, the human fleet and the predators had faced each other in silence, weapons ready, shields raised, the galaxy holding its breath. But silence could never last. Predators never waited long. The first shot came sudden and violent. A predator cruiser unleashed a burning lance of plasma across the void. The beam streaked toward the human line, cutting the darkness in half. Alarms echoed on human ships, but no one panicked. Shields flared, caught the strike, and held. The void lit up with fire. Admiral Reyes stood on her command deck, eyes calm, voice sharp. All ships, she said, return fire. The humans obeyed. The black warships roared as their cannons ignited. Railguns thundered, hurling molten death through the void. Missile bays opened, flooding the stars with fire. Beams of blue-white light cut across the predator fleet, carving through armor, splitting ships apart. The silence shattered. The battle had begun. The Thalkri watched from the ground, their eyes wide as the sky above them burned. They had prayed for help, but nothing could have prepared them for this. Human ships did not fight like defenders. They fought like predators unleashed. Every strike was merciless. Every volley was measured, precise, designed to kill. A predator dreadnought charged forward, its weapons glowing like a dying sun. It fired broadside after broadside, tearing through the void. The Thalkri cried out in despair. No ship had ever stood against such power. But the humans did not run. The flagship, the resolute Dawn, turned to meet it. Its cannons flared, shields blazed, and it dove straight into the predator's fire. Metal screamed, shields cracked, but the human vessel kept coming. Then its railgun spoke, 6 barrels unleashing at once. The predator dreadnought shook, armor splitting open. A heartbeat later, a spread of human missiles slammed into the wounds. The dreadnought burst apart, its pieces tumbling into the void like burning stars. On distant worlds, watching through council relays, alien leaders stared in disbelief. They had feared the predators for centuries. They had surrendered planets, abandoned colonies, sacrificed billions, rather than face them head-on. And here were the humans, charging into their fire and winning, but the predators were not beaten yet. More ships poured into the fight, claws of steel tearing through space. They swarmed the human flanks, overwhelming with sheer numbers. Explosions rocked the line, hulls tearing, alarms screaming across human decks. Crews fought to keep their ships alive, sealing breaches, rerouting power, firing back with everything they had. The battle became chaos. Fire filled the void. A Thalkri child in a shelter clutched her mother's hand, pointing to the burning sky. "Are they saving us?" she asked in a trembling voice. The mother had no answer. For every predator ship that burned, another pressed forward. For every human victory, a cost was paid. This was not salvation. This was war. In the heart of the predator fleet, their commander hissed in fury. These humans fought like no prey they had ever faced. They were not prey at all. They were something worse, something that fought without fear, something that killed with precision, something that reminded them of themselves. Admiral Reyes heard the reports of damage, of losses, of blood spilled on decks. She did not flinch. Her voice cut through the storm like a blade. "Hold the line. Do not give them 1 inch. Show them what humanity is." And humanity answered. Fighters swarmed out of their carriers, screaming into the predator lines like furious hornets. They weaved through enemy fire, dodging, striking, exploding against predator hulls. Human marines prepared boarding actions, their transports darting into the chaos. On one predator cruiser, the doors burst open, and armored soldiers poured inside, rifles blazing, cutting their way through with cold efficiency. The predators had expected weakness. They had found fire. Above the Thalkri homeworld, the clash raged, shaking the heavens. Neither side yielded, neither side broke. But in that storm of death and fire, one truth began to whisper across the galaxy. The predators were not invincible, and the deathworlders had arrived to prove it. The sky was no longer black, it burned. Above the Thalkri homeworld, stars vanished behind fire, wreckage, and the blinding flashes of weapons tearing the heavens apart. What began as a clash had grown into a storm, and at its heart stood humanity's fleet, bleeding, burning, but unbroken. Admiral Reyes gripped the railing of the Resolute Dawn. Her eyes were locked on the predator formations, tightening around them. The predators had learned from the first clash. They no longer rushed blindly. They moved as a pack, circling, pressing, waiting to crush their prey in one coordinated strike. "Status," Reyes demanded. "Shields at 40%, her officer reported. "Multiple hull breaches across the fleet. The Iron Spear is crippled. The Vanguard is gone." The words cut deep, but Reyes didn't blink. Loss was the cost of war. The predators had to believe humanity could be broken, but she would not allow it. "Signal the fleet," she said, her voice sharp. "We strike now. All guns, all fury. Make them regret this sky." The order thundered across the fleet. Human ships, battered and scarred, turned their cannons forward. Plasma bolts, rail slugs, and missile swarms erupted all at once. The void lit up like a supernova. Predator ships staggered, shields collapsing, armor torn away as volleys slammed into them with relentless precision. The Thalkri, watching from the planet below, cried out in awe. Their world shook with every explosion. For centuries, they had feared the predators. Now, for the first time, they saw them recoil. They saw them burn. The predators answered with rage. Their dreadnoughts advanced, claws of steel glowing with fire. Beams cut across the human line, tearing open hulls, blasting ships apart in brutal arcs of light. The Iron Spear finally gave way, split in half by a predator barrage. Hundreds of humans were lost in a single instant, but death only fed their fury. Reyes clenched her fist. "Focus fire!" she ordered. "Bring them down!" The Resolute Dawn and her sister ships turned every cannon on the lead predator dreadnought. The void shook as shells and plasma tore into its heart. The beast roared with fire, but it could not withstand the storm. Its hull cracked, splitting like shattered bone, and a final volley from the Resolute Dawn punched through its core. The dreadnought exploded in a blinding inferno, fragments raining across space. The shockwave rocked every ship. Predator and human alike. Silence followed for a single breath. Then chaos erupted again. On the Predator command ship, their leader hissed in fury. The prey had slain a hunter. That could not be forgiven. He ordered his fleets to press harder, to drown the humans in overwhelming fire. But aboard the human ships, the Marines were ready. Dropships streaked out of carriers, diving through firestorms toward predator hulls. They latched on like claws, cutting into metal, breaching airlocks. Inside, armored humans stormed corridors with guns blazing. Predator warriors rushed to meet them, but the humans fought like demons, fast, precise, unyielding. The clash turned halls into slaughterhouses. On the ground, the Thalkri shelters shook as burning wreckage fell from the sky. Families huddled together, hearing the thunder of war above. Some wept, believing their world would burn with them. Others whispered a new word, trembling but desperate to believe it. Deathworlders. To them, the word no longer meant terror. It meant saviors wrapped in fire. In the chaos of the fleet battle, the predators realized something too late. The humans did not fight only to defend. They fought to break. Every strike was not just survival, it was vengeance. For every ship they lost, the humans made certain the predators lost two more. Admiral Reyes stood tall as the flames of the battle reflected across her eyes. "This is our answer," she whispered. "You bring fear. We bring fury." And the galaxy, watching through hidden relays and stolen transmissions, finally understood the truth. The predators had awakened not prey, but deathworlders, and they fought with fire and fury. The battlefield drifted in silence. Burning wrecks floated through the void, sparks glowing like dying stars. Predator hulks spun lifeless, their claws broken, their fire gone. Human ships, though scarred and battered, still held formation. The clash was over, for now. The Thalakri stood under the blackened sky, staring upward. For the first time in living memory, their world was not covered by predator shadows. But relief did not bring comfort. They had seen the humans fight. They had seen how fire consumed predator fleets, how steel and fury rained down like judgment. And though the humans had saved them, unease spread in whispers. "What kind of beings fight like that?" one elder murmured. "They are not saviors," another replied in a trembling voice. "They are storms given flesh." Aboard the Resolute Dawn, Admiral Reyes read the casualty reports. Hundreds dead, ships crippled, and yet victory. A victory no other species had ever won against the predators. But Reyes did not smile. She knew what victory cost. She knew what it made of humanity. Reports came in from alien observers across the galaxy. Words spread faster than ships could travel. The predators had been pushed back, but by what? Aliens whispered in secret halls, afraid to even speak the truth aloud. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not ally. Humanity was something else. Something darker. They spoke of the shadows that followed deathworlders, of soldiers who never hesitated, of captains who sent ships into fire without pause, of marines who cut down predator warriors with silent precision. As if killing were instinct, the predators themselves whispered now. Their fleets had tasted something worse than fear. They had tasted reflection. In humans, they saw themselves, hunters who never stopped, predators who killed without mercy. But humans carried something more dangerous than claws or firepower. They carried will. On the Thalakri homeworld, survivors began to rebuild, but even as they worked, they avoided looking at the humans stationed among them. Human marines patrolled streets with calm discipline, yet to the Thalakri they seemed like giants cloaked in menace. Children hid behind their parents when armored boots marched past. And though the humans offered food, medicine, and aid, unease lingered. One Thalakri mother whispered to her child, "They saved us. But if they ever turn their eyes on us, who could save us then?" Admiral Reyes stood alone at the viewport, staring into the endless dark. She knew what the galaxy saw. They did not see heroes. They saw deathworlders who brought shadows with them. She closed her eyes, hearing the silence of the void. For in the wake of fire and fury, humanity left something behind. Not just victory, not just fear. They left shadows, and the galaxy wondered, were those shadows meant to protect or to consume? The message spread like wildfire. Across the stars, from the smallest colony outpost to the grandest council chamber, the story was the same. The predators had been broken. For the first time in centuries, their fleets had been stopped. Not by the council, not by any coalition, but by humanity alone. The galaxy trembled. In council halls, alien leaders gathered in secret. Their voices rose in fear, not celebration. "If the predators can bleed," one said, "then perhaps we can stand against them." Another shook his head. "You do not understand. The predators have been checked, yes, but what now rises in their place?" Eyes turned toward the holoscreens, where human warships hovered like dark giants in orbit of the Thalakri world. The sight filled the chamber not with hope, but with dread. On predator worlds, the news struck like a knife. Entire fleets had fallen, dreadnoughts shattered, hunters slaughtered. The predator high command seethed with rage and humiliation. To lose to prey was unthinkable. To lose to deathworlders was worse. The predators swore revenge, but in their darkest moments, they asked a question their kind had never asked before. Could they win? The Thalkri lived beneath the human fleet's shadow, struggling between gratitude and unease. They had called for salvation, and the deathworlders had come. But the fire humanity brought was not gentle. It was merciless, consuming, a storm that cared little for what lay in its path. Some whispered that the humans had saved them only to prove a point, not to rescue, but to warn. Admiral Reyes knew the whispers. Reports from Council worlds spoke of fear spreading like disease. Humanity had become more than saviors. They had become the question every race feared to ask. If humans could do this to the predators, what could they do to the rest of the galaxy? In quiet moments, her officers spoke in hushed voices. "They fear us, Admiral," one said. Reyes only nodded. Good. Fear will keep them alive, but fear had a cost. The galaxy trembled not just at predator fury, but at the shadow of humanity's fire. Allies hesitated. Rivals plotted. Even those they saved now doubted if salvation had been worth the price. The predators were wounded, but not defeated. Their fleets gathered in dark systems, rebuilding, snarling, swearing to strike back harder than ever before. And when they returned, they would not face a fractured galaxy. They would face one reshaped by fear. Fear of the predators, fear of the deathworlders, fear of what the next war would bring. Above the Thalkri world, the human fleet held position, silent, like predators waiting for the next strike. And everywhere in the galaxy, from predator dens to council chambers, from slave colonies to free worlds, one thought echoed again and again. The predators can bleed, but the deathworlders, they can burn worlds, and the galaxy trembled. The galaxy was no longer the same. Whispers had become warnings, and warnings had become fear. The predators, once seen as unstoppable, now licked their wounds in hidden systems. The Council, once proud of its authority, now sat in silence, overshadowed by the very beings they had ignored for centuries. And above the Thalkri homeworld, the human fleet waited, scarred, weary, but unbroken. The predators came again. They always did. Their fleets, reforged in rage, burst from hyperspace like a storm of claws and fire. The sky darkened with warships, more than before, larger than before, brimming with fury and desperation, but the humans were ready. Admiral Reyes stood on the command deck of the Resolute Dawn. Her face was calm, her voice steady, though every officer around her knew the truth. This was not just another battle. This was the reckoning. Transmit to all ships, she said. Hold nothing back. Today, they learn what it means to call us deathworlders. The void ignited, human guns roared in unison, a storm of fire unleashed without restraint. Railguns screamed, missiles flooded the heavens. Plasma cannons burned holes through predator shields. The predators answered with their own fury. But the humans pressed forward like wolves in a feeding frenzy. On the ground, the Thalkri watched as night turned to day, their skies painted with the light of war. Children pressed against shelters, staring upward, whispering the name of the beings who had come when no one else did. Deathworlders. The predators fought with desperation, throwing entire fleets into the blaze. Their dreadnoughts charged, weapons blinding, their commanders hissing defiance into the void. But the humans met them head-on. Ship after ship tore into the predator line, boarding actions spilling Marines into steel corridors where they fought hand to claw, rifle to fang. The predator leader snarled, refusing to accept defeat. He ordered his flagship to break the human line, to crush the Resolute Dawn. But Admiral Reyes was waiting. Lock weapons, she ordered. Target their heart. The Resolute Dawn unleashed its fury. Cannons tore through predator armor. Missiles found their mark, and with one final earth-shaking volley, the predator flagship erupted into fire. The explosion lit the void, scattering what remained of their fleets. The predators broke. Silence returned to the stars. The Council, watching through hidden relays, could only stare. The predators had been the galaxy's nightmare for generations. Humanity had not only stood against them, they had shattered them. But with that victory came a truth more terrifying than the predators themselves, for now the galaxy knew what humanity truly was. They were not prey, they were not saviors, they were deathworlders, born from a cradle of struggle, shaped by a world that tried to kill them every day. And when they came to war, they brought fear and fire. On the Thalkree homeworld, survivors stepped from their shelters, staring at the fleet above. They had begged for salvation. Humanity had answered, but deep down, every Thalkree knew salvation and destruction had come from the same place. Admiral Reyes looked out into the endless dark. She knew the galaxy trembled now, not because of predators, but because of humanity, and in the silence of the void, a single truth remained. The predators were broken. The galaxy was afraid, and the deathworlders had arrived with fear and fire.